Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
So a massive warm welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. I hope you are all well. If everything has gone to plan, I hope it has. I should be in Croatia, lying on a beach on a digital detox, far away from a microphone and internet connection when you listen to this episode. But being the good guy that I am, I've ensured episodes go out every single day while I'm away. And today, Captiv8 CEO and co-founder Krishna is going to join me on the Tech Talks Daily to share his story. And for those of you that don't know, Captiv8 started as a social listening tool and has grown to become a leading influencer marketing company that offers both a fully self-service and AI-powered platform, which has got me intrigued, as well as a managed service marketplace. But when we dig a little bit deeper, he's got an amazing story to share too. I mean, he was the co-founder of BlueLithium, the online advertising network, which I believe was acquired by Yahoo back in 2015 for $300 million. But that is enough spoilers from me. He has a great story to share, so buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way stateside where Krishna is waiting to speak with us right now. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Krishna. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Hi, my name is Krishna Subramanian. I am based in San Francisco in the Bay Area. I am a digital marketing entrepreneur. And so I've started an online advertising company, mobile advertising company, and today run an influencer marketing platform.
So a digital marketing entrepreneur, I've got to ask, how did that world and technology, how did it all collide? Or should I say, can I ask you to share your origin story and what put you on this path you're on today?
Yeah, definitely. That's the first time I used that phrase. And so as I was saying it, I was like, oh, that's interesting. So my background, I went to undergrad at UC Davis out in California, was on my path to medical school, basically took a year break and went out to New York, and I was doing research at the New York Academy of Medicine on pre-hospital cardiac care. I was doing research during the day, coming home and staying at my uncle's house in their basement in Queens. So this is right after I graduated, didn't really know anyone in New York. So I'd come home and I'd figure out like, I need to get out and I need to get into New York in Manhattan. But I didn't want to ask my parents for money since they were paying for everything else that was going on. And so I started, doing random odd jobs off of Craigslist, so things like building websites and apps. And I started just doing that all night, started skipping research, started hiring a team out in India to help build these, to help just support the work that was coming through. Ran into a couple of people that were starting up companies. And, one guy said, hey, I'm starting up a company. Why don't you come back and start this company up with me? And I was like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. But yeah, it's not going to work. I'm going to med school, and this is what I've decided to do for my entire life. But, one thing led to another. I came back to the Bay Area, started working with him and a couple of other folks. And this became the founding team of BlueLithium. So as I was exploring that, I told my parents, I was like, med school, I'm going to put that on hold. I'm going to start a company up with a guy I don't really know in a space I'm not that familiar with, but I have this like gut feeling. My mom started crying. My dad walks out of the room, and I was like, shoot, that I should have probably rehearsed that. But essentially got lucky, and so that was sort of the entry into everything online advertising. Essentially learned while I was there as part of that founding team at BlueLithium. Focused on product and marketing. And this is a time when everyone was talking about retargeting and behavioral targeting. And, we managed to get a pixel up on Yahoo's homepage, and that essentially spurred the acquisition from Yahoo at the end of 2007 for $300 million. And then, teamed up with Sunil and Vishal, two of the co-founders of Captiv8, and we started our first company together that was called Mobclix. And Mobclix was a mobile ad exchange. So essentially the thought was, as the App Store on the iPhone was launching, a lot of developers are going to want to know, who's using their app, want a lot of those insights, but also want to make money. So as opposed to starting an ad network, which was similar to BlueLithium, we said, why not just call all the mobile ad networks that are out there and just start taking their inventory and running it on mobile apps. So this was a super, super exciting time because the App Store just continued to explode in a good way. And all of these developers were just making thousands of dollars a month. And our SDK was integrated into probably about 80% of the apps back in 2008 to 2010. And we were, doing billion of impressions a month. Got acquired by a European company called Velti. Velti was public on the AIM in London, and they acquired us to uplist to the NASDAQ. So at Velti, I was CMO. Stayed there for a couple of years, ran the public ad tech mobile roller coaster because Velti was the first public mobile ad tech company. And so this is, back in 2011, 2012. So this is before ad tech has become, super exciting in the public markets like it is today. And, then took a little bit of time off, signed up for an Ironman, didn't really make it, but did some other, short and long triathlons in between. Got into investing, started it in a family office called Team in Residence, made probably about 50 different investments. And then during that time period, got really interested in what was happening in social, looking at how millennials are changing the way they consume content, essentially just spending a lot less time in front of the TV and more time in front of social platforms. And the thought was, as millennials change the way they consume content, brands are going to change the way they engage with millennials, because they realize the millennials not going to click on a banner ad and buy something, but they're highly influenced by these digital celebrities. And so that's sort of the starting point of Captiv8.
Love it. What a powerful story. And I'm curious, do you ever have that conversation with your parents about, especially after BlueLithium was acquired by Yahoo for 300 million? Do you ever revisit that conversation with them?
I do, but being Indian, my mom will always remind me, if you were a doctor, and so now a lot of my best friends are they continue down that path and they're doctors, and just a text message away, so it ends up working out all right.
And like you said, that path led you to Captiv8, which started as a social listening tool and has since grown to become a leading influencer marketing company that offers both a fully serviced AI-powered platform as well as a managed service marketplace. But for people that are hearing about it for the first time, could you just introduce them to Captiv8 and the kind of problems that you set out to solve here in 2021 and what makes you different from other solutions out there?
Yeah, so I think in terms of I think in terms of Captiv8, we did start off as a social listening platform, and really it was sort of the targeting, the targeting and the data behind everything, and so that was the whole point, is like, how do we get a better understanding of what's happening in social and in Instagram specifically. And so as we went down that path, the social listening layer became really exciting because we started to measure the velocity of content being shared on social, on Instagram specifically, measured, sort of predicting virality as well. Very quickly, a lot of the brands that were using our platform started to say, well, how can I actually activate influencers? And so that's where we built this end-to-end platform that really allows a brand to identify influencers, manage that, end-to-end workflow, and then handle all of the measurement and reporting. So the goals for Captiv8 was really to help streamline the efficiency and bring scale to influencer marketing.
And there's a lot of talk at the moment about the future death of the cookie and what that means for marketing. So can I ask you to tell me a little bit more about the future of a cookieless marketing for influencer marketing and the type of first-party data that is most important to influencer marketers right now? Because it feels like the landscape is just continuously evolving, isn't it? And there's new sets of rules appearing every other week almost.
Yeah, I think that just the digital marketing, buying platforms and measurement platforms are continuing to evolve pretty significantly. I think yesterday we just saw two of the top 10 mobile ad networks merged together, Liftoff and Vungle. And a lot of it is because, platforms like Apple or even browsers are just making it's making it very difficult to do a lot of the original, say performance marketing that marketers are used to. I think when we look at influencer marketing, there's sort of two ways of looking at it. One is the paid component and one is the organic component. And when you look at the organic component, it's just an influencer posting on a social channel. So when you post on a social channel, it's very hard to get a lot of data from that, right? Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, they're not allowing you to even drop cookies at that point or add pixels. So you're tied into just whatever reporting data that they're able to pass through an API. And so I think that's always been a challenge on its own. But what a lot of marketers are doing is getting people to click out of Instagram or out of Twitter to their websites, and then that that sort of goes through that process. And I think and I think it's I think what we are trying to do is look at first party data around creators in a couple of ways. One, when you look at an influencer like a Zach King, right? Everyone knows who Zach King is. You can go to Google and find him. You can pick up the phone and call him. But is there additional data around Zach King that we know only because Zach King has told us, in terms of like, is he married? How old is his kids? Is he allergic to something? And start to build that first party data set. So now as an advertiser, you can come in here and get a lot more value than just what's provided from social APIs or whatever it might be on Google. So I think that's something that we've really doubled down on over the last 18 months is building that first party creator data. The second thing is working with other folks like LiveRamp and being able to leverage that data as well, which I think we can talk about later as well.
Absolutely. And there's so much I want to dig deeper with you on here. And another is, can you tell me a little bit more about the importance of adding, let's say, a paid social component to an influencer campaign, especially through tactics like whitelisting content?
Yeah. So I think, when you think about branded content, this is influencers creating that content. Yeah. It typically has much higher engagement rate than a regular brand post. So the challenge with that is the content is only being shown to a percentage of their followers. So on Instagram, let's say if you post natively, you're probably getting around 20% of your audience is seeing that content within your feed, and maybe 7% on your story. And so the paid social component really allows you to make sure you're getting, let's say, close to 80 or 90% of your audience that actually sees that content. And then you can start to really target to a broader audience outside of that influencer's audience that ties towards your brand. And I think that becomes, fairly exciting for brands, because you can also start to really drive to specific outcomes or results. Like if it's installs or sales, you have the ability to do that.
And as this is a tech podcast, I've got to ask, what role do you see emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and machine learning, etc.? What kind of role do you see them playing in helping brands actually measure brand safety?
Sure. So I think there's lots of different things when we look at influencer marketing that I think AI can really play a role on. I'll start off first in terms of influencer selection on campaigns is super subjective, right? You might see a media buyer or planner that says, hey, I think these influencers are going to be the best fit for our campaign, because of, maybe some data they're looking at, but they also have this, emotional connection to that creator. They're like, oh, I've always wanted to work with Dude Perfect, or I've always wanted to work with, whoever it might be. And they lean into that. Or, when you look at content, they lean into a specific photo or video that the creators submitted versus allowing data and AI to really predict this stuff. And, I really think AI is going to make predicting influencers and choosing them on their own much more effectively, right? So I think AI should say, based on your audience brand affinity, here's who you should be working with, and here's the content that they should be posting. So I think that's where it's really going to play. I think in terms of brand safety, today we're already doing a lot of this, looking at things like profanity, politics, racism, adult content, bullying, and trying to help marketers get a better idea of not only about the creator, but the creator's audience as well, and just measure brand safety from that standpoint.
And before you came on the podcast today, I was doing a little bit of research and I read about your recent partnership with LiveRamp. So can you tell me a little bit more about that and how essentially it's going to help you turn brands' first-party data into scalable influencer campaigns? Because again, feels like a pretty big move by you guys.
Yeah. So LiveRamp, this continues on from the last thought of, why make the creator selection so subjective. And I think that's where we've started to look at and say, can we take a brand's audience and allow them to look at the customers of that brand and identify influencers based on that? And so by partnering with LiveRamp, we're able to match the brand's audience, the brand's customers to influencers and make influencer selection based on that. So you're now selecting influencers based on who's already a customer or whose audience has a significant overlap in customers.
Prior to creating Captiv8 in 2015, you were also, as you said at the very beginning in your intro there, in your origin story, that you were the co-founder of BlueLithium, an online advertising network, which went on to be acquired by Yahoo for $300 million after becoming the 5th largest ad network in the US and the 2nd largest over here in the UK. And obviously from there, you went on to co-found Mobclix, a mobile ad exchange network that went on to be acquired by Velti. Now, the question I've got to ask, I always say to any successful entrepreneur, when you reach the top and you get out that elevator, it's kind of your job to then send the elevator back down. So for any startup founders listening at the beginning of their startup journey, what's the best piece of advice you've received along the way or lesson that you might have learned that you'd like to pass down to them?
One of the most important things I think is I think it's easy to say, do something that you're passionate about or that you really care about. But I really think that is one of the most important things. If you're not truly passionate about the area that you're trying to solve a problem for, if you're too focused on money or too focused on, the sexiness of being a founder, right? You're just not going to be able to, survive the roller coaster road of being a founder and being an entrepreneur. I think it's definitely not easy at all, right? No matter what direction you jump on or how successful it is, you're always going to wake up and feel like you just got punched in the face, and you have to put on a smile and get to work and figure out how to keep grinding away to make it successful. And I think to be successful, especially in the early days, that company has to be your number one priority. And it probably goes against a lot of the work-life balance that people talk about. But I really feel that, during that period of time, if that company is not your number one priority, that same idea is going to be someone else's number one priority, and you're not giving it a chance to succeed. And if you hate what you're doing and you don't absolutely love it, you're just going to not be excited about waking up every morning and focusing on it.
Sound advice. That's what it's all about for sure. And looking to the future, what's next for you and what's going to be your big focus in 2022? I can't believe we're even saying that number out loud, but we are heading there at a rapid rate. So what's going to be your big focus?
So outside of, gaining more market traction and market share and just, sort of growing from that perspective, I think a lot of it is also figuring out how we continue to build culture with our employees, and customers. And I think we are still in this remote world, culture. And I think we have transitioned to being completely remote. And so I think it's really important to figure out how you build those emotional, connections with employees, existing and new, and customers. And I think it's definitely a challenge. And I think it's, figuring out how to do that and how to create that engagement. And I think that's a big, important thing for us. And it's something that I don't think we've completely figured out yet. So.
We started the podcast today talking about your origin story, and now I'm going to bring you full circle and ask you, what was the soundtrack to your career in tech? Is there a particular song or piece of music that has accompanied you on your journey that just helps you get your head in the zone, or maybe, like you say, just keeps reoccurring and giving you comfort throughout that roller coaster ride we've just been talking about? Is there a song and story you can share?
I think from from a song perspective, I think something that that I love is generally things from Swedish House Mafia. I think it's kind of exciting to see them all coming back together again. And I think that's definitely something that I feel keeps coming up. I think in terms of I'd say that's that.
Awesome. And for anyone listening that wants to find out more information about Captiv8, continue to follow your journey or contact your team if they've got any questions, what's the best starting point?
Sure. Twitter, Ksub15, on LinkedIn. And then, you can always email me, Krishna at captivate.com.
Excellent. Well, I'll have those links to the show notes so people can find you nice and easily. Loved hearing more about the great work that you're doing. But more than anything, for me, it was just hearing about your story, that journey you've been on. And I don't think we realise sometimes that you taking the time to come on here and share that will inspire somebody somewhere listening in another part of the world, especially if their parents are telling them to become a doctor and they'll say, but Krishna says.
Exactly.
So more than anything, just thank you for sharing that with me today.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Really appreciate your time and enjoyed the conversation.
What an amazing story. And I just keep thinking about that difficult conversation he was having with his parents back in the day about them wanting to be a doctor, him walking away, and how traumatic that must have been at that moment in time, and how brave he was to continue to follow his gut. And the rest, as they say, is history. And these are the very human stories behind these tech careers that I love to hear on the podcast. So if you have one to share, or you know somebody that does, please email me now, techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me, Instagram at Neil C. Hughes, and LinkedIn at Neil C. Hughes, and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. But now I'm going to beam myself back to that beach. So a big thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.